Beneath the golden sands of Egypt, a sealed clay jar held a secret so terrible, it was hidden away for 70 years. You stand today in the shadow of colossal temples, marveling at the engineering, the art, the divine ambition. But in 1922, an archaeologist discovered a dead-end passageway, its walls marked with the desperate, fading handprints of children, and a single phrase scratched over and over. "Isis has turned her face away." Why would the goddess of protection abandon her most devoted servants? The official histories, carved in pristine hieroglyphs, call them vessels of the divine, sacred wives of the god. Glorious titles, masking a brutal reality. British Egyptologist Dr. Arthur Fleming was cataloging a minor storage chamber near Thebes. His brush uncovered a false wall, and behind it, a sealed jar, untouched for millennia. Inside were 19 letters. When he presented them, the Department of Antiquities seized the find, classifying the contents. The lead translator resigned, writing in his journal, "Some darkness should remain buried." For decades, the jar vanished. What was in those pages that frightened the experts themselves? If you believe the past should speak, no matter how uncomfortable its voice, then you are in the right place. Some histories are written in stone, others in silent screams. Every subscription to Winds of Thought helps us bring these silenced voices back into the light. Hit subscribe, and let's uncover what they tried to erase. Ancient Egypt's new kingdom was an empire of unimaginable wealth. But its temples were not just places of worship. They were economic engines of terrifying power. The temple of Amun at Karnak owned more land than the pharaoh, controlling a workforce of tens of thousands. These aren't myths. The records, like the Harris Papyrus you can see in London, list every asset with cold, bureaucratic precision. The priests were not just holy men, they were executives. Here is the machine in motion. A farmer borrows seed grain from the temple. The interest is unforgiving. A bad harvest, then another. The debt swells. The priests arrive with 3 choices: forfeit your land, enter slavery with your entire family, or dedicate your young daughter to the god's service. They use gentle terms. A life of honor, a celestial blessing. The legal term was Hemet Nedjer, God's wife. The practical truth was a life sentence. In the workers' village of Deir el-Medina, archaeologists uncovered a contract. It reads, "The farmer Passer, unable to repay 20 devon of grain, gives his daughter, Ta-Mit, to the house of Ammonius for all her days." Ta-Mit was 8 years old. Her life was traded for a bag of grain. But this is where the story twists. These girls weren't merely servants. Many were taught to read and write, skills forbidden to most. Some rose to immense authority, managing vast estates, wearing jewels, commanding staff. So why the hidden handprints? Why the message of abandonment? What did Dr. Fleming's letters actually describe? The answer lies in a single twisted word: consecration. If the thought of an 8-year-old traded like property doesn't make you want to speak her name, then history has already won. Don't let it. A civilization is judged by its victims, not its monuments. Stay with me. In 1895, excavators found a manual in a priest's tomb. It's now in the Cairo Museum, cataloged as Ritual Procedural Text 114. It reads like a checklist. On the day of acceptance, the girl is to be cleansed in the sacred lake. Her old garments are removed. She is inspected for bodily purity. That word, inspected. The text continues. All hair is shorn to eliminate imperfection. She shall recite the vow. My flesh belongs to the God. My voice is his instrument. Imagine a child, 10 years old, standing naked before strange men, repeating words she cannot comprehend. But then they gained access to the temple's most restricted halls. They learned astronomy, managed finances, and performed sacred rites. One inscription praises a woman, Iset, who oversaw the temple's granaries and directed 500 laborers. Power, yet no autonomy. They could command a workforce, but could not refuse a command. They could read sacred texts, but were forbidden from sending letters home. In the 1970s, a researcher studying ostraca, pottery shards used as notepads, found medical recipes. Dozens were for young temple women. Treatments for physical trauma, instructions for preventing pregnancy, notes on assisting girls in childbirth. One shard prescribes, "For the maiden who bleeds from the god's touch, apply honey and willow bark. Bind it with linen." The god's touch. They had a name for it. Among these texts was a fragment of a letter, the writing shaky. "To my daughter, I am sorry I believe their promises. Your mother's eyes are never dry. Forgive me." It was never signed. The daughter could not receive it. But this wasn't a universal tragedy. For some women, the temple was a path to unparalleled influence. The great pharaoh Hatshepsut began as a god's wife. Others entered willingly as adults for an education. So what was the difference? What separated the powerful from the imprisoned? The key is one word the official carvings avoid: age. Dr. Fleming's sealed jar contained the letters of a woman named Nebet, who served for 4 decades. She wrote of a regular ceremony she called the Divine Selection. The polished temple records are silent, but Nebet documented it. Her words were hidden for 3,000 years. Dr. Fleming's field notes are stored at Oxford. You can request access. His entry for November 5, 1922, states, "Uncovered sealed vessel in false compartment." Papyrus scrolls inside. Have read too. I feel a profound shame. He showed his initial translations to 2 colleagues. Both refused to continue. The authorities declared the documents potential fakes and locked them away. They weren't seen again until 1993. Most scholars have never read them. Nebet's account, written in the informal hieratic script of personal correspondence, is chilling. In my 14th year, I was chosen for the selection. I had watched others go before me. They came back, hollow. They took us to the inner shrine after dark. There were 4 of us that cycle. The smallest was maybe 7. She wept. The overseer said sadness was a sin. The high priest wore the mask of Ammonius. He told us that God would plant his sacred seed within us, that our bodies were blessed to be his garden. He said it was a holy thing. Fleming's notes add, this describes an organized system of violation disguised as liturgy. Because the true horror was its efficiency. This wasn't passion, it was policy. Administrative records from the Temple of Medinet Habu show schedules. Girls are listed by name with marks for their rotation dates. Ages are recorded. The youngest, 6. It was institutional. Nebet wasn't the only one. The jar held other testimonies added over time. One woman wrote, "My name was Ipe before they renamed me. My father owed a debt of wine. They told him I would be wed to the divine. I was 10. There is no God here, only men in gold masks." Another wrote, "I have been here 18 years. I have borne 2 children for the God. They took them from me after their first year. My son now serves in the kitchens. He walks past me and does not see me. Now, remember the handprints." Nebet's letters explain them. When new girls arrived, they were led down a specific corridor and told to press their hands into the wet plaster. "Leave your old self here," they were told. They did it, children confused and scared. But years later, the older women would return to that same spot, the one place guards ignored. They would press their hands again, their grown fingers overlapping the small ghosts of their past selves. And they would carve nearby, "Isis has turned her face away." Not a prayer, an accusation, a testimony. But the system documented it all. They kept perfect records. One administrative text from Luxor reads, Regnal Year 9, second month of parade, day 5. 3 new vessels received the god's blessing. The god was satisfied. 3 new vessels. No ages. The god was satisfied. They wrote it down without shame as part of their sacred duty. They believed it. You now carry this knowledge, just as Fleming did. You can close this video, or you can help us ensure these whispers are never silenced again. That's the choice. And it leads to one final, shocking turn. By 1000 BC, everything changed. The role of God's wife was taken over exclusively by the pharaoh's own daughters. They were required to be celibate. Why? A royal decree from the period speaks of cleansing impurities that had defiled the holy sanctuaries. The solution? Install women of royal blood, women with political power, education, and their own guards into the top positions. Women who were untouchable. The victims, in a bitter twist, became the only viable solution. A position of genuine power forged from absolute powerlessness. After this period, the personal record stopped. No more hidden letters. No more desperate carvings. Did the abuse end? Or did the system simply get better at burying the evidence? Dr. Fleming's jar was suppressed for 71 years. When it was finally released, the academic world largely looked away. It's easier to study architecture than atrocity. You can visit Karnak today. You can walk among those towering pillars, each one a prayer frozen in stone. It is beautiful, and every stone was set by hands that were not free. Every hymn was sung by a voice that could not say no. We still do this. We admire the grandeur and ignore the cost. We call things sacred because it's easier than calling them cruel. Dr. Fleming wrote in his final, unpublished note, a society's greatness is not found in its pyramids, but in its justice for the powerless. On that scale, we are all found wanting. How many modern institutions hide behind tradition? How many use the language of honor to justify control? The temples are ruins now. The priests are long gone. But the pattern remains. You have not just learned about ancient history. You have seen a blueprint for how power corrupts, a blueprint that is still in use. If understanding this pattern is important to you, then like this video and subscribe to Winds of Thought. Our mission is to give voice to the silenced. There is one last mystery. Nebut's jar could hold 20 scrolls. Only 19 were found. In 2001, a collector in Alexandria claimed to have the missing letter. He said it named names, specific priests, collaborating officials. He was found dead 2 days later, before any meeting could take place. According to Fleming's index, that final scroll held the key that could unlock the entire conspiracy. It is still out there, waiting,